I'm Looking for Kadak by Harlan Ellison. You'll pardon me, but my name is Ifsise, and I'm standing here in the middle of sand talking to a butterfly, and if I sound like I'm talking to myself, again, you'll pardon, but what can I tell you? A grown person standing talking to a butterfly in sand. So new. What else can you expect? There are times when you gotta make adjustments. You gotta let be a little, just to get along. I'm not all that happy about this, if you want the specific truth. I've learned, God knows I've learned. I'm a Jew, and if there is a thing Jews have learned in over 6,000 years, it's that you gotta compromise if you want to make it to 7,000. So let be. I'll talk to this butterfly. Hey, you butterfly, and I'll pray for the best. You don't understand. You got that look. Listen, I read once in a book that they found a tribe of Jewish Indians somewhere deep in the heart of South America. That was on the earth. The earth, shtumie. It's been in all the papers. So, Jewish Indians, what a thing. And everyone wondered and yelled and made such a mishigas that they had to send historians and sociologists and anthropologists and all manner of very learned types to establish if this was a true thing or maybe somebody was just lying. And what they found was that maybe what had happened was that some Galush in Spain, fleeing the Inquisition, got on board with Cortez and came to the New World, Cainahora, and when no one was looking, he ran away. So then he got farblanged and wound up in some little place full of very suggestible native types. And being somewhat of a tumbler, he started teaching them about being Jewish. Just to keep busy, you know what I mean? Because Jews have never been missionaries. None of that converting crap. I shouldn't name names, religions need to keep going, unlike Judaism, which does very cute thank you on its own. And by the time all the smart Alecs found the tribe, they were keeping kosher and having brisses when the sons were born and observing the high holy days and not doing any fishing on the Shabbos, and it was a very nice thing altogether. So it shouldn't surprise you that there are Jews here on Zoshmun, with a ch, not a k. You got a no accent like a Litvak. It shouldn't even surprise that I'm a Jew and I'm blue and I have 11 arms, thereby defying the law of bilateral symmetry, and I am squat and round and move very close to the ground by a series of caterpillar feet set around the rim of ball joints and sockets on either side of my tuchus, which obeys the law of bilateral symmetry. And when I've wound the feet tight, I have to jump off the ground so they can unwind, and then I move forward again, which makes my movement very peculiar, I'm told by tourists without very much class. In the universal ephemeris, I am referred to as a native of Theta 996-6, cluster Messier 3 in Canis Venatici. The 6 is Zoshmun. A Baedeker from some publisher in the Crab came here a few turns ago and wrote a travel pamphlet on Zoshmun. He kept calling me a Zoshmoid. He should grow in the ground, head first like a turnip. I am a Jew. I don't know what a turnip is. Now I'm raving, but it'll do to you talking to a butterfly. I have a mission, and it's making me crazy, giving me spilkis. You could die from a mission like this. I'm looking for Kadak. Hey, you butterfly, a blink, a flutter, a movement, it wouldn't hurt. You should make an indication you can hear me. I shouldn't stand like a schlemiel telling you all this. Nothing, you wouldn't give me a break. Listen, if it wasn't for that oisworth, that bum Snortle, I wouldn't be here. I would be with my family and my lust-nest concubines on Theta 9963, what the ephemerists call bromios, what we Jews call kasrelevka. There is historical precedent for our naming bromios another name, Kasrelevka. You read Shalom Aleichem, you'll understand. A planet for schlamazels. I don't want to discuss it. That's where they're moving us. Everyone went. A few crazy ones stayed. There are always a few. But mostly, everyone went. Who would want to stay? They're moving Zoshmun. God knows where. Every time you look around, they're dragging a place off and putting it somewhere else. I don't want to go into that. Terrible people. They got no hearts in them. So we were sitting in the yeshiva, the last 10 of us, a proper minyan, getting ready to sit shiva for the whole planet for the last days we would be here, when that oisworth Snodel had a seizure and up and died. Oh, look, a question maybe? Why were we sitting Shiva in the rabbinical college when everybody else was running like a thief to get off the planet before those gonifs from the relocation center came with their skyhooks? A glitch if ever I saw one, shady, disreputable, to give a yank and a drag, and place out of orbit, and give a shove and jam, in big Michigan magnets to float around where a nice, cute world was, just to keep the cluster running smooth. When they pull out a world, everything shouldn't go bump together. Why, you ask me? So I'll tell you why. Because, Mr. I won't talk or even flap wings butterfly, Shiva is the holiest of the holies. Because the Talmud says when you mourn the dead, you get 10 Jewish men who come to the home of the deceased, not 8 or 7 or 4, but 10 men. And you sit and you pray, and you hold services, and you light the Yorsriat candles, and you recite the Kaddish, which is every intelligent life form in the cluster, except maybe a nut butterfly, knows as the prayer for the dead, in honor and praise of God and the deceased. And why do we want to sit Shiva? For a world that was such a good home for us for so many turns? Because, and it strikes me foolishness to expect a fakak the butterfly to grasp what I'm trying to say here, because God has been good to us here, and we've got property, which now is gone, and we've got families, which now are gone, and we've got our health, which, if I continue talking to you, I'll be losing shortly. And God's name can be hallowed by word of mouth only in the presence of others, the community of worshipers, the congregation, the minyan of 10, and that's why. You know, even for a butterfly you don't look Jewish. So new. Now you understand a little, maybe. Zoshmun was a golden Medina for us, the golden country. It was good here. We were happy here. Now we have to move to Kasrelevka, a world for schlamazels. Not even a Red Sea to be parted. It isn't slavery. It's just a world that's not enough. You know what I mean? So we wanted to pay last respects. It's not so crazy. And everyone went. And only the 10 of us left to sit the 7 turns till we went away, and Zoshmun was gniffed out of the sky to go God knows where. It would have been fine, except for that Snodel, that crazy, who seized up and died on us. So where would we get a 10th man for the minyan? There were only 9 Jews on the whole planet. Then Snodel said, "There's always Kadak." "Shut up, you're dead," Reb Jeshaya said, but it didn't do any good. Snodel kept suggesting Kadak. You should understand, one of the drawbacks of my species, which maybe a butterfly wouldn't know, is that when we die and pass on, there's still talking, nudging. Oh, you want to know how that can be? How a dead Jew can talk through the veil from the other side? What am I, a science authority? I should know how that works? I wouldn't lie on you. I don't know. Always it's been the same. One of us seizes up and dies, and the body squats there and doesn't decay the way tourists do when they get shicker in a blind pig bar in downtown Humitz and stagger out in the gutter and get knocked over by a tumbril on the way to the casinos. But the voice starts up, nudging. It probably has something to do with the soul, but I wouldn't put a bet on that. All I can say is thank God we don't worship ancestors here on Zoshmun, because we'd have such a sky full of nudging old farts telling us how to run our lives, it wouldn't be worth it to keep on this side of the veil. Bless the name of Abraham. After a while they shut up and go off somewhere. Probably to nudge each other. They should rest in peace already and stop talking. But Snodel wasn't going away. He died, and now he was demanding we not only sit Shiva out of courtesy for having lived there so prosperously, but we should also, you shouldn't take it as an imposition, sit Shiva for him, and Oisvorf, that's Snodel. There's always Kadak, he said. His voice came from a nowhere spot in the air, about a foot above its body, which was dumped upside down on a table in the yeshiva. Snodel, if you don't mind, said Shmuel, with the one good antenna, would you kindly shut your face and let us handle this? Then seeing, I suppose for the first time, that Snodel was upside down, he added, but softly he shouldn't speak ill of the dead. I always said he talked through his tuchus. I'll turn him over, said Chaim, with the defective unwind in his hop. Let be, said Shmuel. I like this end better than the other. This is getting us nowhere, said Yitzhak. The Ganifs come in a little while to take away the planet. We can't stay. We can't go. And I have lust-nest concubines lubricating and lactating on bromios this very minute. Kasrelevka, said Avram. Kasrelevka, Yitzhak agreed, his prop arm, the one in the back, curling an ungrammatical apology. A planet of 10 million Snodels, said Yankel. There's always Kadak, said Snodel. Who is this Kadak the Oisvor's babbling about, asked Meyer Kahaha. The rest of us rolled our eyes on the remark. 96 Tsuri's filled eyes rolled. Meyer Kahaha was always the town schlemiel. If there was a bigger Oisworth than Snodel, it was Meyer Kahaha. Yankel stuck the tip of his pointing arm in Meyer Kahaha's ninth eye, the one with the cataract. Quiet. We sat and stared at each other. Finally, Moishe said, "He's right. It's another tragedy we can mourn in the Tisha B'Av, if they have enough turns on Kasrelevka for Tisha B'Av to fall in the right month. But the Oisworf and the Schlemiel are right. Our only hope is Kadak. Lightning shouldn't strike me for saying it." "Someone will have to go find him," said Avram. "Not me," said Yankel. "A mission for a fool." Then Reb Yeshaya, who was the wisest of all the blue Jews on Zoshmun, even before the great Exodus, one or two of them, it wouldn't have hurt if they'd stayed behind to give a little help so we shouldn't find out too late we were in this miserable state of things, because Snodel seized up and died. Reb Yeshaya nodded that it was a mission for a fool, and he said, "We'll send Epsis." "Thanks a lot for that," I said. He looked at me with the 6 eyes on the front, and he said, "Epsis, should we send Shmuel with one good antenna? Should we send Chaim with a defective hop? Should we send Yitzhak, who is so crippled with lust he gets cramps? Maybe we should send Yankel, who is older than even Snodel, and would die from the journey. Then we'd have to find 2 Jews. Moishe? Moishe argues with everyone. Some cooperation he'd get." "What about Avram?" I asked. Avram looked away. "You want I should talk about Avram's problem here in front of an open Talmud, here in front of the dead, right here in front of God and everyone?" Reb Yeshaya looked stern. "Forget it. I'm sorry I mentioned," I said. "Maybe I should go myself. The rabbi should go? Or maybe you'd prefer we sent Meyer Kahaha?" "You made your point," I said. "I'll go. I'm far from a happy person about this. You should know it before I go. But I'll do it. You'll never see me again. I'll die out there looking for that Kadak, but I'll go." I started for the borough exit of the yeshiva. I passed Yitzhak, who looked sheepish. "Cramps," I muttered. "It should only wither up and fall off like a dead leaf." Then I rolled, hopped, and unwound my way up the tunnel to the street and went looking for Kadak. The last time I saw Kadak was 17 turns ago. He was squatting in the synagogue during Purim, and suddenly he rolled into the aisle, tore off his yarmulke, his talish, and tefillin, all at once with his top 3 arms on each side, threw them into the aisle, yelled he had had it with Judaism, and was converting to the Church of the Apostates. That was the last any of us saw of him. Good riddance to bad rubbish, you ask me. Kadak, to begin with, was never my favorite person, if you want the truth, he snuffled. "Oh, that isn't such an avera. I can see you think I'm making a big something out of a big nothing. Listen, Mr. Terrific, I flap my wings as you should tice me. Me, I'm a person who says what's on his mind. I don't make no moofky-foofky with anyone. You want someone who beats around the bushes, you should talk to that Avram. Me, I'll tell you, I couldn't stand that Kadak snuffling, all the time snuffling. You sit in the shul, and right in the middle of the Shema, right in the direct absolute center of Hero Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, comes a snuffle that sounds like a double-snouted pegalomer in a mud wallow. He had a snuffle made you want to go take a bath. A terrible snuffle if you listen to me for a minute. He was the kind, that Kadak. He wouldn't care when he'd snuffle. When you were sleeping, eating, stooping, making a caca, he didn't care. Would come a blast, a snort, a rotten snuffle, could make you want to get rid of your last 3 or 4 meals. And forget talking to him. How can you talk to a person who punctuates with a snuffle? So when he went off to convert to the apostates, sure, there was a scandal. There weren't that many Jews on Joshmun. Anything was a scandal. But to be absolutely frank with you, I'll speak my mind no matter what. We were very relieved. To be free of that snuffle was already a nashes, like getting one free, or 7 for 5. So now I had to go all over there and back, looking for that terrible snuffle. It was an ugliness I could live without. You should pardon my frankness. But I went through downtown Humitz and went over to the Holy Cathedral of the Church of the Apostates. The city was in a very bad way. When everyone had gone to Kasrelevka, they took everything that wasn't bolted down. They also took everything that was bolted down. They also took the bolts. Now to mention a lot of the soil, it was all bolted down into. Big holes everywhere. Zoshmun was not, at this point in time I'm telling you about, such a cute little world anymore. It looked like an old man with a crank, like a pisher with acne. Very unpleasant. It wasn't a trip I care to talk about. But there was a little left of that crazy Fakakta cathedral still standing. Why shouldn't they let it stand? How much does it cost to make a new one? String, the dummies, they make a holy place from string and spit and bits of dried crap off the streets and their bodies. I don't even want to think about what a sacrilege. I rolled inside. The smell, you could die from the smell. On Zochmun here, we got a groundworm, this filthy little segmented thing everyone calls a pinch crusher. Lumbricus rubellus venaticus, my Uncle Beppo, the lunatic zoologist, calls it. It isn't at all peculiar why I remember a foreign name like that. Latin is what it is. I'm abyssal scholar, too, you know. Not such a dummy as you might think. And it's no wonder Reb Yeshaya sent me on this It Could Kill a Lesser Jew mission to find Kadak. I remember because once I had one of them bite me in the tuchus when I went swimming, and you learn these things. Believe you me, you learn them. This rotten little worm, it's got pinching things in the front and on the sides, and it lies in wait for a juicy tuchus, and when you're just ready to relax in a swim, or maybe to take a nap on a picnic, chomp, it goes right for the tuchus. And it hangs on with those triple damned the entire species should go straight to Gehenna pinch things. And it makes me sick to remember, but it sucks the blood right out of you, right through your tuchus. And you couldn't get one off. Medical science is hootsie-tootsie as it is. You could varf from the size of a doctor's bill. Even the hootsie-tootsies can't get one off you. The only thing that does it is you get a musician, and he bangs together a pair of cymbals, and it falls off, all bloated up with your blood, leaving a bunch of little pincher marks on your tuchus you're ashamed to let your lustmates see it. You don't ask why the doctors don't carry cymbals with them for such occasions. You wouldn't believe the union problems here on Zoshmun, which includes musicians and doctors both, so you'd better be near a band and not a hospital when a pincher crusher bites you in the tuchus. Otherwise, forget it. And when the terrible thing falls off, it goes pop, and it bursts, and all the awful crap it had, and it makes a stink you couldn't even think about. The eyes, all 12 of them, could roll up in your head with the smell of that feh and blood and crap. Inside the cathedral of the Church of the Apostates, the smell, like a million popped pincher crushers. I almost went over on my face from that smell. It took 3 hands to hold all of my nose. A little whiff shouldn't slip through. I started reeling around, hitting the strings they called walls. Fortunately, I rolled around near the entrance, and I stretched my nose a couple feet outside, and I took a very deep breath, and snapped my nose back and held it, and looked around. There were still 6 of them who hadn't run off to Kasrelevka, all down on their stomachs, with their feet winding up and unwinding, very fast, their faces down in the mud and crap in front of the altar, doing what I suppose they call praying, to that idol of theirs, Seymour, or Simon, or Stumi, whatever they call it. I should know the name of the heathen idol, you bet your life, never. Better I should know the Latin name of a miserable worm that stinks first, let me tell you. So there they were, and let me assure you, it pained me in several more than a couple of ways to have to go over to them, but I'm looking for Kadak. Hey, I said to one of them, a terrific look at this tuchus I got. Such a perfect tuchus, if ever there was one, for a pincher crusher to come and chomp. Nothing. Hey, I yelled it a second time. No attention. Crazy with their faces down in the crap. Listen, hey, I yelled at the top of my voice, which isn't such a soft niceness when I'm suffocating holding my nose with 3 hands, and I want to get out of that place already. So I gave him a zetz in the tuchus. I wound up every foot on the left side, and I let it unwind right where a pincher crusher would have brunch. Then the dummy looked up, a sight you could become very ill with, a nose covered with crap from the floor, a bunch of eyes filled with blue jelly, a mouth from out of which could only come heathen hosannas to a dummy idol called Stegitz or something. You kicked me, he said. All by yourself you figured that out, eh? He looked at me with 6 and blinked and started to fall over on his punim again, and I started to wind up. I'd give him such a zetz I'd kick him into a better life. We don't accept violence, he said. That's a terrific saying, I told him. Meanwhile, I don't accept an unobstructed view of your tuchus. So if you want I should go away and stop kicking you, you can go root around in the dreck somewhere. What you'd better do is come up here a minute and talk to me. He kept looking. I wound up tighter. You could hear my sockets creaking. I'm not such a young one anymore. He got up. What do you want? I'm worshipping to Simul. Simul, that's a name for a god. I wouldn't even hire someone called a Simul. You'll worship later. That booby isn't going anywhere. But Zoshmun is. Very correct, which is the same reason I got to talk to you now. Time is a thing I got very little of, if you catch my meaning here. Well, what is it you want precisely? Oi, a Talmudic scholar no less. Precisely. Well, Mr. Precisely, I'll tell you what it is precisely I want. You know where it is I can find a no-good snuffler called Kadak? He stared at me with 6, then blinked rapidly in sequence, 2 and 4, 3 and 5, 1 and 6, then went back in reverse order. You have a nauseating sense of humor. May Seymour forgive you. Then he fell back on his face, his legs up winding and unwinding, his nose deep in dreck. I say Kadak, he says Seymour. I'll give you a Seymour. I started to wind up for a kick would put that momser in the next time zone when a voice stopped me from over the side of that stinking cathedral, and you can bet I was turning yellow from not breathing. A woman said, "Come outside, I'll tell you about your friend Kadak." I turned to look, and there was this shiksa all dolled up in such a pile of colored schmatas and baubles and bangles and crap from the floor. I thought to myself, Gewalt, this turn I should never have crawled out of the burrow. So anyhow, I followed her outside, thank God, and let my nose extend to its full length, and breathed such a deep one, my cheek sacs puffed up like I had a pair of babies stuffed in. So now this bummercad, this floozy, this painted hussy says to me, "What do you want with Kadak?" "Wait a minute," I said. "I'll get upwind from you," meaning, no offense, lady, but you smell like your church. I rolled around her and got a little away, and when it was possible to breathe like a person, I said, "What I want is to go join my lustmates on Bromios, but what I got to do is I got to find Kadak. We need him for a very sacred religious service. You'll excuse me for saying this, dear lady, but you being Gentile, you wouldn't understand what it is." She batted her eyelids and flapped phony eyelashes on 3 of them. Oi, a nafke, a lady of easy virtue, a courtesan of the byways, a bummerke. Would you contribute to a worthy charity to find this Kadak? I knew it. I knew somewhere on that damn Looking for Kadak it would cost me a little something out of pocket. She was looking directly at my pouch. "You'll take a couple of coins, is that right?" "It isn't exactly what I was thinking of," she said, still looking at my pouch, and I suddenly realized with what I'll tell you honestly was a chill that she was cross-eyed in 4 of her front 6. She was staring at my pubic. What? I'm trying to tell you, Butterfly, that she wasn't staring at my pouch, which was hanging to the left side of my stomach. She was staring with the cockeye 4 at my cute little pubic. What? You'll forgive me, Mr. Silent Butterfly with the very dumb expression. I should know that butterflies don't have pupics? A navel, a belly button. Now you understand what it is, a pupic? What? Maybe I should get gross and explain to a butterfly that shtups flowers that we have sex through our pupics. The female puts her long middle finger into the bottom part of the right side, straight into the pupic, and goes mufki-fufki, and that's how we shtup. You needed that, is that right? You needed to know how we do it. A filth you are, Butterfly, a very dirty mind. But not as dirty as that nafke, that saucy baggage, that whore of Babylon. Listen, I said, meaning no offense, lady, but I'm not that kind of a person. I'm saving myself for my lustmates. I'm sure you'll understand. Besides, meaning no offense, I don't shtup with strangers. It wouldn't be such a good thing for you either, believe me. Everybody says Evsis is a rotten shtup. I got very little feeling in my pubic. You wouldn't like it, not even a little. Why don't I give you a few nice coins? You could use them on Kasri, on Bromios. You could maybe set yourself up in a business there, a pretty lady such as yourself. God shouldn't strike me down with a bolt of lightning in the tuchus for telling this filthy-mind cockeye heathen nafke what a cutie she is. You want to find this Kadak? She asked, staring straight at 2 things at the same time. Please, lady, I said. My nose started running. Don't cry, she said. Seymour is my God. I trust in Seymour. What the hell is that to do with anything? We are the last of the faithful of the church. We plan to stay on Zoshmun when they relocate it. Seymour has decreed it. I have no hope in living through it. I understand cataclysms are commonplace when they pull a planet out of orbit. So run, I said. What kind of dummies are you? We are the faithful. It gave me pause. Even Gentiles, even nutcases like these worshippers of Shmuel, whoever, even they gotta believe. It was nice, in a very dumb way. So what has all that got to do in even the slightest way with me, lady? I'm horny. Well, why not go in your cathedral there and shtup one of your playmates? They're worshipping. To that statue that looks like a big bug picking its nose, with the dreck and crap and mud all over it? Don't speak disrespectfully of Seymour. I'll cut out my tongue. That isn't necessary. Just stick out your navel. Lady, you got a dirty mouth. You want to know where Kadak is? I won't tell what nasty indignities came next. It makes me very ashamed to even think about it. She had a dirty fingernail. So I'll tell you only that when she was done ravaging my pubic and left me lying there against a mud wall of a building, the pink schmooze running down my stomach, I knew that Kadak had been as lousy an apostate as he had been a Jew. One afternoon, just like in the synagogue years before, he ran amok and started biting the statue of that bug god they got. Before they could pry him off, he had bitten off the kneecap of Schmugel, so they threw him out of the church. This Nafkin knew what had happened to him because he had used her services. You could brech from such a thought, and he still owed her some coins, so she'd followed him around, trying to get him to pay, and she'd seen he'd bounced from religion to religion until they accepted him as a slave of the rock. So I got up and went to a fountain and washed myself the best way I could, and said a couple of quick prayers that I wouldn't get knocked up from that dirty finger, and I went looking for the slaves of the rock, still looking for that damned Kadak. I walked with an uneven roll, hop, unwind. You would too if you'd been ravished, butterfly. Just the second you'd think on it, how would you feel if a flower grabbed you by the tuchus and stuck a pistol and stamen in your pubic? What? Oh, terrific. Butterflies don't have pubics. Talking to you standing here in sand is not necessarily the most sensational thing I've ever done, you want to know. The slaves of the rock were all gathered in a valley just outside the city limits of Humitz. The governors wouldn't let them inside the city. Who can blame them? If you think those apostates were pukers, you should only see the rocks, such cuties. It is Tvarf. Big rocks they turn themselves into, with tongues like string, 6 or 7 feet long, all rolled up inside. And when a kendall or a znig or a buckfly goes whizzing past, slurp, out comes that ugly tongue like a shot and snags it, and wraps around and comes whipping back and smashes the bug all over the rock. And then the rock gets soft and spongy like a piece-rotten fruit and absorbs all the dreck and crap and awfulness squished there. Oh, such terrifics, those rocks. Just the kind of thing I would expect a Kadak to be when he couldn't stand being himself no more. Thank you oh so very greatly, Reb Jeshaiah, for this looking mission. So I found the head rock, and I stood there in that valley, all surrounded by rocks going slurp and squish, and sucking up bug food. This was not the best part of my life I'm telling you about. How do you do? I figured it was the most polite way to talk to a rock. How did you know I was the chief slave? The rock said. You had the longest tongue. Slurp. A znig on the wing, cruising by, humming a tune, minding its own business, got it right in the punim, a tongue like a wet noodle, splat, right in the punim, and a quick overhead twist and squish, all over the rock. It splattered on me, gooey and altogether puke-making. Definitely not the kind of individual to make a terrific dinner out with. The Gedarim was all over me. Excuse the mess, said the chief slave. He really sounded sorry. Think nothing, I said. That was a very cute little overhand twist you gave it there at the last minute. He seemed flattered. You noticed that, did you? How could I help? Such a class move. You know, you're the first one who's ever noticed that. There have been lots of studies made by all kinds of foreigners, from other worlds, other galaxies even, but never did one of them notice that move. What did you say your name was? The bug ooze was dripping down my stomach. My name is Evsis, and I'm looking for a person who used to be a person named Kadak. I was given to understand that he'd become a rock a few years ago. I have a great need to find this Kadak rock. He should drop dead already, such a rotten time he's been making for me. Listen, said the chief slave, as the remains of the znig oozed down through the spongy surface. I like you. Have you ever thought of converting? Forget it. No, really, I'm serious. To worship the rock is such an enriching experience. It really isn't smart to dismiss it without giving it a try. What do you say? I figured I had to be a little smartsy then, just a little. Say, I wish I could. You got no idea what a nice proposition that is you're making to me. And in a quick second, I'd take you up on it. But I got this one bissel tot of a problem. Would you like to talk about it? A psychiatrist rock yet. I really needed this. I'm afraid from bugs, I said. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, I see your point. Bugs are a very big part of our religion. I can see that. Ah, well, I'm sorry for you, but let's see if I can help you. What did you say his name was? Kadak. Oh, yeah, I remember now. What a creep. That's him. Let me see now, said the rock. If I recall correctly, we threw him out of the order for being a disruptive influence. Oh, it must have been 15 years ago. He used to make the ugliest noises I've ever heard out of a rock. Snuffling. I beg your pardon? Snuffling is what he did. A terrible snort noise, all wet and cloggy. It could make you sick to be near it. Yes, that was it. So what happened to him? I'm afraid to ask. He reconstructed his atoms and became just like you again. Not like me, please. Well, I mean the same species. And he went off? Yes, he said he was going to try the fleshists. I wish you hadn't told me that. I'm sorry. I sat down, settled my tuchus right down between my rims, drew up my legs, and dropped my head into half a dozen of my hands. I was very glum. Would you like to sit on me? The rock asked. It was a nice offer. Thanks, I said politely, looking at the last slimy ooze of the znig on the rock, but I'm too miserable to be comfortable. What do you need him for? He asked. So I explained the best I could. This was, after all, to a rock, a piece of stone, even if it could talk, about the minyan of 10. The chief slave asked me why 10. So I said, on the earth, a long time ago. You know about the earth, right? Right. Well, on the earth, a long time ago, God was going to give a terrific zetz to a place called Sodom. What it was, this Sodom was a whole city full of fleshists. Not a nice place. I can't conceive of an entire city of fleshists, the rock said. That's rather an ugly thought. That's the way God looked at it. We were both quiet for a while, thinking about that. So anyhow, I said, Abraham, blessed be his name, who is this very holy Jew, even if he wasn't blue, you shouldn't hold that against him. I won't. Yes, right. Well, Abraham pleaded with God to save Sodom. Why did he do that? A city full of fleshists? Yech. How do I know? He was holy, that's all. So God must have thought that was a little meshuggah, a little crazy. Also, you know God is no dummy, and he told Abraham he'd spare Sodom if Abraham could find 50 righteous men living there. Just men. What about women? There isn't scripture on that one. Sounds like your God is a sexist. At least, you'll pardon my frankness now, but at least he isn't a thing that lies in a valley for birds to take a caca on. That's rather rude of you. I'm terribly sorry, but it isn't nice to call the one true God a rotten name. I was only asking. Well, it isn't too classy for a rock to ask them kinds of questions. Now, do you want to hear this or don't you? Yes, sure, but what? Why did this God haggle with this Abraham? Why didn't he just tell him he was going to do it and then do it? I was getting pretty upset, you know what I mean? It was because Abraham was a mensch, a real terrific person, that's why, okay? The rock didn't answer. I guess he was sulking. So okay, let him sulk. Then Abraham said, okay, what if I can only find 40 righteous men? And God said, okay, let be 40. So Abraham said, what if only 30? And God said, no, let be 30 already. And then Abraham said, what if only 20? And God started yelling, all right, stop nudging me, let be 20. Let me guess, the rock said. Abraham said 10, and your God got really mad and said 10 was it and no further, and that's how you came up with 10 men for the congregation. You've heard it, I said. The rock was silent again. Finally, he said, listen, I like your idea of religion. I'm not altogether happy being a slave of the rock, even if I am the chief rock. How about if I converted and came back with you and made the 10th for the minyan? I thought about that for a while. Well, I said slowly, the Talmud does say 9 free men and a slave may be reckoned together for a quorum. But against that is quoted that Rabbi Eliezer went into a synagogue and didn't find 10 there, so he freed his slave and with him completed the number. But if there had only been 7 and he had freed 2 slaves, it wouldn't have been kosher. But with 1 freed slave and the rabbi, it made 10. So clearly, as all agree, 8 freemen and 2 slaves would not answer the purpose. But if you just put yourself in my place for a moment, you're not, even remotely speaking, my slave. You're the slave of the rock. And besides, it takes a long time to convert. Can you speak Hebrew? Even a little. What's Hebrew? Forget it. How about keeping kosher? What are they? I'll keep them if it's part of the program. After all, when you've been a rock eating bugs all your life, keeping some kind of pet doesn't sound too difficult. It was hopeless. For a moment there I gave it a maybe. You know what I mean? But the more I thought about it, even if I could summon up the chutzpah to go back to Reb Jeshaya with a rock, not with a kadak, it wouldn't work. This rock was a nice enough fellow, you know what I mean? But even as I sat there pondering, he shot out that ick tongue of his and snared a buckfly and whipped it in that move he thought was such a sensational thing and splattered it all over the place and started eating it. And clearly, very clearly, Genesis 9:4 forbade animal blood to all the seed of Noah. So how could I bring a rock back and say, here, I freed this slave of the rock, and he'll be the 10th man? And then right in the middle of Adonai, out would come that crummy tongue and eat a bug off the wall. Forget it. Listen, I said, as gentle as I could. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. It's a strictly great offer you've made, and under other circumstances I'd take you up on that. You know what I'm saying? But right now I'm really pressed for time, and it would take too long for you to learn Hebrew. So let's let it sit for a while. I'll get back to you. He wasn't happy about that, I could tell, but he was a real mensch. He told me he understood, and he wished me good luck with the fleshists, and he let me run away fast. I could see his point, though, and I was very sorry about his not being a possible. I mean, how would you like it to sit all day baking in the sun, with birds making pish on your face, and the best you got to look forward to is a juicy bug? And if I'd known what I had coming, what suris, I'd have gladly, only happily yet, you can believe it, taken that rock back with me, bug dreck and all. Believe me, there are worse things than a rock that eats bugs. I'll make a long story short. I followed the trail of that Putz Kadak from the pit of the fleshists, where I lost the use of my pubic, all my coin, the sight of one eye in the back, the second arm on the left side, and my yarmulke, to the embarkation dock at the spaceport where the sect called the Denigrators were getting on board ships for that Bromios, where I got beat up so bad I crawled away, to the lava beds where the true believers of suffering were doing their last rites before leaving, where I suffered first-degree miserable and such a pain you wouldn't accept over half my poor body, to the tabernacle of the mouth, where some big-deal prophet that was all teeth bit off the tip of one antenna, God knows why, maybe out of pique at being left behind, to the caucus race of the malforms, where I fit right in, as crept up and bloody as I was, to the lair of the blessed profundity of the unspeakable trill, which I could not, even if I had several mouths, pronounce. But they punched and kicked me anyhow, really sensational people, to the archdruid of nothingness, always following that miserable creep Kadak from religion to religion. And let me tell you, no one had a good word for that schmuck, not even the worst of those heathens. And it was there, Cain Ahora, that the archdruid told me that the last he'd seen Kadak was 10 years earlier, when he had changed him into a butterfly and sent him out into the desert to hopefully drop dead in the heat. Which is why, finally, I'm standing here talking to you, dumb creep butterfly. So now I've told it all, and you see what a puke condition I'm in. Don't for a minute think that Avram or those others will respect me for what I did. They'll only nudge me about how long it took, and that's why you got to come back with me. Not a word, not a sound through all this, not a flap or a flitter or a how are you, sheesh, nothing. Look, I'm not going to tumble with you, Mr. I can't make up my mind what kind of religion want to be butterfly. You think I stood here all this time, sinking it up to my rims in sand, just to tell you a cute story? I know you're Kadak, and how do I know? Go ahead, snuffle like that again and ask me how I know. Come on, you'll come either by yourself or I'll drag you by your wings. You know for a butterfly you're not even a nice-looking butterfly. You're an ugly is what you are. And as for being a Jew, only that by birth, such a disgrace to the entire blue Jews on Zoshmun. As you can see, I'm getting angry. You've gotten me raped, crapped on, burned, maimed, crippled, blinded, insulted, run around, exposed to heathens, robbed, sunburned, covered with bug schmutz, altogether miserable and unhappy, and I'll tell you very frankly, you'll come with me, Mr. Kadak, or I'll choke you dead right here in this Fablanget desert. Now what do you say? I thought that's what you'd say. Here he is, Yankel didn't believe it. Chaim laughed. Shmuel started to cry, his nose running green. Snottle coughed, and Reb Yeshaya hung his head. I should have sent Avram, he said. Avram looked away like a dead leaf it should fall off. Here he is what I said, and here he is what it is, I said. This is your Kadak, may he rot in his cocoon. Then I told them the whole story. At least they had the grace to be amazed. This is what makes the minyan, Moshe said. This? Make him change back, and that's him, I said. I wash my hands of it. I went over in a corner of the shul and settled down. It was their problem now. 4 hours they went at him. They tried everything. They threatened him. They begged him. They implored him. They intimidated him. They cajoled him. They schmackled him. They insulted him. They slugged him. They chased his tuchus all over the shul. Sure, of course, wouldn't you know, that rotten Kadak wouldn't change back. At last he found a thing he wanted to be, a dumb creep butterfly. What a snuffle, still with a rotten snuffle. Did you ever know how much worse a butterfly snuffles than a person? You could plutz from it. And finally, when they couldn't get him to change back, and if you want to know the truth, I don't think he could change back after that weirdnik booby archdruid changed him. They held him down, and Reb Yeshaya made the rabbinical decision that his presence was enough in this great emergency. So Meir Kahaha sat on him, and we started to sit Shiva, finally for Zoshmun and for Snottle. And then Reb Yeshaya got a terrible look on his face, and he said, "Oh my God, what, I yelled. What now? What? Very softly, Reb Yeshaya asked me, Evshish, how long ago did the archdruid say he changed Kadak into this thing? 10 years ago, I said. But what? And I stopped, and I sat down again, and knew we had lost. And we would still be there when the Ganifs came to rip the planet out of orbit, and we would die, along with the crazies in the apostate cathedral, and the Nafke, and the Rock, and the Archdruid, and everyone else who was too nuts to get safely away, the way they were supposed to. What's the matter? Asked Meir Kahaha. The Oisvorf. What's wrong? Why does it matter? He's been a butterfly for 10 years. Only 10 years, said Shmuel. Not 13, schmuck. Only 10, said Yankel, sticking his pointing arm in Meir Kahaha's ninth eye. We looked at Meir Kahaha till the light dawned, even for him. Oh my God, he said, and rolled over on his side. The butterfly, that miserable Kadak, fluttered up and flew around the shul. No one paid any attention to him. It had all been in vain. Scripture says very clearly there should be no mistake that all 10 of the participants of a minyan have to be over 13 years old. At 13, for a Jew, a boy becomes a man. Today I am a man. It's an old gag. Ha ha, very funny. It's the reason for the bar mitzvah. 13, not 10. Kadak wasn't old enough. Still dead, still lying on his face, Snodel began weeping. Reb Yeshaya and the other 7, the last blue Jews on Zoshmun, now doomed to die without ever again gumming their lustnest concubines, they all slumped into seats and waited for destruction. I felt worse than them. I hurt in more places. Then I looked up and began to smile. I smiled so wide and so loud, everyone turned to look at me. He's gone crazy, said Chaim. It's better that way, said Shmuel. He won't feel the pain. Poor Evshish, said Yitzhak. Dummies, I shouted, leaping up and rolling and hopping and unwinding like a tummeler. Dummies, dummies. Even you, Reb Yeshaya, you're a dummy. We're all dummies. Is that a way to talk to a rabbi, said Reb Yeshaya. Sure it is, I yowled, reeling and rocking. Sure it is, sure it is, sure it is, sure it is. Meir Kahaha came and sat on me. Get off me, you schlemiel. I know how to save us. It's been here all the time. We never needed that creep snuffle butterfly Kadak. So he got off me, and I looked at them with great pleasure, because I was about to demonstrate that I was a volksmensch of the first water, and said, under a ruling in Tractate Berekot, 9 Jews and the Holy Ark of the Law containing the Torah may together, hey, nu, do you get what I'm saying? May together be considered for congregational worship. And Reb Yeshaya kissed me. Evsis, how did you remember such a thing? You're not a Talmudic scholar. How did you remember such a wonderful thing? Reb Yeshaya hugged and kissed and babbled in my face at me. I didn't, I said. Kadak did. And they all looked up, as I'd looked up, and there was that not such an altogether worthless after all Kadak sitting up on top of the Holy Ark, the Aron HaKodesh, the sacred cabinet holding the sacred scrolls of the Lord, sitting up there, a butterfly, always to remain a butterfly, sitting and beating his wings frantically, trying to let someone know what he knew, something even a rabbi had forgotten. And when he came down to perch on Reb Yeshaya's shoulder, we all sat down and rested for a minute. And then Reb Yeshaya said, "Now we will sit Shiva, 9 men, the Holy Ark, and 1 butterfly make a minyan." And for the last time on Zoshmun, which means look for me, we said the holy words, this last time for the home we had, the home we would leave. And all through the prayers, there sat Kadak flapping his dumb wings. And you want to know a thing? Even that was a mechshia, which means a terrific pleasure.